Hello, friends, and welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. My name is Avery, and I'm your host, and this is episode 50, which is really cool. Feels like a big milestone. It does and it doesn't. Part of me feels like I've been doing this for 2 seconds, and part of me feels like I've been doing this for 20 years. But I want to talk about what happens when your gifts start coming online. This is something, like many of my episodes, I always try to kind of talk about what the collective is going through right now, or what I might be going through right now, because I just feel like that is a much easier place to speak from. And so this is something that both I am going through and the collective is going through. So there's a really good chance that you are also going through this. In fact, I've talked to multiple people, multiple clients who have actually been going through this recently. Even if you wouldn't quite label it that way, it's basically like noticing that your gifts are coming online, noticing that things are changing, that something is weird, something is different. Why are you more sensitive? And you might not know that this is exactly what's happening. You might know, you might not know. And so we're going to talk about what it looks like and what it is and how to kind of interpret it, how to go about it, all of that. Because like I said, many people really start noticing that this is happening. They notice their intuition, they notice their spiritual gifts in really small ways before those ways start to become bigger and more noticeable. It's like you're probably experiencing or have been experiencing little things for a while, and it's not until they start to get really noticeable sometimes where you might go, oh, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening? I thought this was just, my thoughts, or I thought this was just, a fluke, and now it's getting stronger. So what's happening? So what is happening? Why is it happening? How should we navigate it? First of all, the reason that this is happening is something we've discussed in multiple different episodes, especially recently. I've mentioned it a million times, and it's essentially the raising frequency of the planet right now, the Schumann resonance, the intensity of the energies. As the frequency on the planet rises, the intensity also rises. The intensity gets more noticeable. So as this shift is happening, we've talked a lot in other episodes about how the shift is basically bringing emotional baggage to the surface, like all of the emotional stuff you haven't dealt with, or the trauma you haven't dealt with, or the relationships you haven't dealt with. All of that kind of comes to the surface, and you're going to have to deal with it. That's what we've kind of talked about more recently. Well, in sync with that, right alongside that, at the same time, your gifts are coming online, because as your frequency is rising, you are getting more and more connected to those higher frequencies where your gifts can be embodied. Think of it like this. The lower the frequency, the more hidden and covered up your gifts are. The frequency of spiritual gifts, the vibration of a spiritual gift, is very high. That frequency is one that allows you to converse with spirit. There's a lot of open flow. The lower the frequency is, the more dense it is. So a 3D frequency is very dense, which means it's harder for energy to move around, right? Think of a material that's dense versus a material that's very airy and, like a solid versus a gas, for example. So it's like your gifts have been trying to move around in this very dense energy. And as the frequency of the planet raises, it's now got more room to operate. Though that energy of your gifts has more room to flow around, they're coming online. Does that make sense? So your energy field essentially becomes more receptive to these gifts that have been there all along, but they haven't had the space to really bloom, to grow, and to be more accessible to you. And so you're beginning to be able to kind of speak to the universe. You're beginning to be able to actually have those phone lines open where they might have been staticky before, And so people who have had access to those gifts are people who have either, raised their frequency already and they've done a lot of that work, or they just came in already really connected. Most of us, though, have had some sort of struggle, or we've had to kind of fight some obstacles to get access to those gifts. And essentially all of that is just going to become a lot easier now. However, that's the good part. The maybe not so great part is that we have to adjust to this. Just like any other frequency shift, just like any other change, your nervous system is going to have to adjust to this new energetic state. And so in the beginning, it will probably feel very overwhelming, very overstimulated, because it's learning to process all of these subtle signals that previously went unnoticed. It's like all of a sudden, as it's kind of coming online, as the frequency is rising, your body's going, wait, what's that? What's that? What's that? We never noticed this before. Now your nervous system is kind of picking up on all of these new things, picking up on all of these signals and synchronicities and messages, and it's going, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, how do we adjust to this? So your body is going to go through this learning curve with or without your knowledge that is going to feel probably a little bit uncomfortable at first, but it's a sign of growth and not a problem. But again, like I always say, this is why it's important to know what's happening, because a lot of these things, and I can speak from my own experience, if I was not aware of what was happening in my life around all sorts of spiritual topics and aspects, I would have had a much harder time. But because I'm aware of them and because I have tuned into them and done the research and, really tried to understand what's happening, it's easier for me to make those adjustments. It's like if you're trying to communicate with somebody that maybe has like some sort of mental disability or something, you might, if you didn't know what they were struggling with, you might not fully understand, like, why is this hard? Why is it hard to communicate with this person? Or why are we just like missing each other? What's going on? Versus if you have an understanding of what's happening, or what the other person is dealing with or going through, you might be like, oh, okay, I understand. This makes it easier. I understand, why the conversation is moving like this or why we're having a hard time here. So it's like, even if you are having a hard time, even if it's difficult, having an understanding of it makes it much clearer and easier to navigate. Also, it's important to know that these gifts are not random. They're not just like whatever you were dealt. These are very specific to your soul plan and your life lessons. We all have access to every single one of the same gifts. Like everybody has access to psychic knowledge. Everybody has access to clairvoyance or clairaudience or claircognizance. Everybody has access to that. But just like some people are born really fantastic athletes and some people are born, with the skill of being artistic right from the get-go, each of us also has gifts that are stronger or maybe naturally more developed than others. And that is on purpose because it's there to help us navigate our higher purpose, navigate our path more efficiently. They are deeply tied to your soul's evolution. And so keep that in mind as we talk about these gifts. And what you might notice is that most people have one or two or however many gifts that really stand out above the rest, like ways of receiving information, ways of receiving feelings or emotions or downloads or what have you. Most people are going to do that, or they're going to find that one or two of those ways is a lot easier than maybe some of the other ways. Okay, so what are some of like the earliest signs of spiritual activation? A lot of these, if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably already been feeling a lot of this because right now we're going through like a huge, massive leap forward where it's going to be a lot stronger. Things that you've probably already noticed are like subtle nudges, gut feelings, synchronicities, seeing 11:11 or, seeing a rainbow right at the right time or hearing a song or whatever, downloads that seem to come out of nowhere. These are the first signals that your awareness is expanding and your spiritual senses are awakening. And again, you've probably already noticed those. What you might not have recognized, though, as part of your gifts coming online are the physical and emotional aspects, because a lot of us are so used to dealing with the physical or dealing with the emotional that we just don't think to attribute it oftentimes to a energetic change that's happening. But like I've said many times before, everything that happens physically in your body has an emotional tie. Like every illness, every ailment, every pain point in your body, every sickness, literally everything has an energetic, emotional counterpart. So it's like when you get sick, a lot of times simultaneously, your body is clearing out a certain type of energy. Or, if you break a leg or if you, get diagnosed with some sort of sickness or disease, there's always an energetic component to that is tied to why that might be happening. Like an unhealed trauma or you just like suppressing different emotions instead of processing them. All of that The body keeps score. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but all of that gets stored in your body. And then eventually that energy starts to kind of poke out in a negative way if it's not dealt with. Okay, so in this case, it's not that you're burying things, but it's that, again, as the frequency rises, and those lower, denser energies get pushed out, and these gifts, these different ways of your energy being used to communicate with the universe, your body is going to have to adjust to that. So physical and emotional symptoms might appear too, and you should be aware so that you can recognize, oh, I'm not going crazy, or I'm not just like getting sick, or I'm not having a hard time physically for no reason, that there is a tie. Those are symptoms also of you becoming more spiritually in tuned and your entire frequency of your body changing. So you might experience heightened sensitivity, fatigue, headaches, restlessness, mood swings. These are not random. They are the body and energy systems adjusting to that higher frequency. Always think of it like a detox. There is an adjustment period. You might also notice your dreams becoming more vivid or symbolic, or just having more ideas than usual, or more creative insights, or suddenly you're just really feeling inspired. Those are also kind of signs that your subconscious and your intuitive self are starting to communicate more directly with you. And in a little bit, I'll get into kind of some weird things that have been happening to me lately and my kids and family members that I've talked to, because it's really cool. It's really interesting. But first, I'm really just going to go over kind of like a giant list, because I want to give you plenty of examples, because everybody experiences these things so differently that I kind of want to validate, if you're experiencing something random, I'm kind of hoping that I can hit it within this list so you'll know like, oh, wait a minute, I've been experiencing that. This is my gifts coming online. It's not just like a random ailment, or even just like a change that's been happening and you maybe have noticed it or not noticed it, but it's just very subtle. Okay, all of these are signs that your gifts are coming online and your life is shifting, okay? Decision making feels like it's maybe more guided. Decision making becomes a little bit easier. Like when you go to make decisions, you feel more aware of how you intuitively feel. Like you're more aware of your gut feeling when it comes to making decisions rather than just logic alone. And this is kind of your soul or your higher self kind of coming online and allowing you to get used to living in a way where your intuition really becomes the driving, kind of the steering wheel for where you go and what you do, and relying less on your logical brain and more on your intuitive feelings. Does that make sense? My brain is just really not working today. Relationships are also absolutely going to change for most people. You might attract, this is good news, you might attract spiritually more aligned people, people that are more kind of on your same trajectory, people that understand you more, people that communicate more similarly to you, people who just kind of hold the same energetic frequency, as opposed to, people that you walk on eggshells around, or people who have a lot of unhealed trauma. Those people are going to naturally be distanced from your life, or you will feel the need to naturally distance yourself from those people, because it will become more obvious that they are draining your energy, more obvious that you just don't click, they don't align with you. And this is going to be family members, it's going to be friends, it's going to be anybody in your life that is an energetic mismatch is going to become more and more difficult to maintain space around. Another more exciting thing that you will notice as your gifts start coming online is opportunities, synchronicities, guidance starts appearing in ways that feel really like almost magical, because your energy is now tuned to receive higher frequency information. Whereas in those lower frequency states, you could get information, but you had to work a little bit harder. You had to be a little bit more tuned in, and you didn't have access. It's like your access bank was smaller. Now, as your frequency is rising and these gifts are coming more online, everything expands. So the ease that you receive the information expands, the access to the kind and the amount of information expands. Like everything just gets more expansive, more abundant, and more accessible. So those are all really, really great signs and things that I would assume that I bet a lot of you are already experiencing. However, now I want to talk about the little stuff like seeing things out of the corner of your eye or hearing messages in your head. Like, what are the little ways that might be new to you where things start coming online and maybe you go, was that a sign, or was that my gifts, or am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Let's go over that, because so many people, I would argue to say most people who are going through a spiritual growth journey tend to doubt what they see or hear or feel or whatever. They think they're making it up. They're thinking, I can't possibly have these gifts. Surely other people that work with these gifts are hearing them a lot more strong, or it's more evident. I'm here to remind you, spiritual gifts are always subtle. The gifts themselves, the information itself is always subtle. What's getting stronger is your ability to access it. But it is never going to feel like a thunder god in your head who is just like yelling at you, where it's so obvious and it sounds like somebody else's voice entirely and yada, yada, yada. So I need you to understand and get used to the idea that it's not going to be that way. It is subtle. But the good news is, the more you practice hearing it, the more you practice being open to it, the more obvious it will become. Just like anything else, it's like if you listen to the same song 50 times over, by the time you've listened to it so many times, you're hearing other parts. You're hearing the harmonies, or you're hearing the piano part, or, whatever it is. The more you practice this, the more you will pick up on the little nuances energetically of how it feels a little bit different from your own voice, or, how you perceive it just a little bit differently, or maybe the way that things are phrased, or maybe, things that you're seeing with your physical eyes or hearing with your physical ears, whatever it is. It's always subtle, but you will get better at reading it. Okay, so you might notice that your senses start picking up on more than they have before. Not in a scary paranormal way, although if you automatically think everything is scary, if you automatically assume everything is like, a demonic ghost or, something like that, then yeah, you might be afraid. So again, this is why these things tend to come online slowly. If everything unleashed upon you all at once, we would all be terrified and disoriented, and it would just be bad news. We wouldn't develop very well. These things trickle in. It's like as the frequency rises, it starts to open up slowly, slowly, slowly. But you need to take advantage of it, right? You need to pay attention. You need to tune in, and you need to recognize that you don't have to be scared of everything you see. In fact, most things in this realm are not scary. We protect ourselves energetically, and we try to educate ourselves, because you never know what you'll encounter. But most of the time, it's not going to be these like scary, dangerous things. Okay, so just want to say that as kind of like a PSA. But you might notice things like flickers of light. And a lot of times this is in your peripheral, a lot, especially in the beginning. But you may notice flickers of light, shadows in your periphery, or kind of just an understanding or a sense that like somebody is in the room. Like there's a spirit in this room. There's a presence in this room. This happens because your intuitive senses, your clairsentience, your clairvoyance are waking up, and your energy field is expanding beyond the physical bandwidth that you are used to. As your gifts come more online, your like aura is kind of now able to pick up things that you weren't able to pick up before. So you used to be kind of bubbled into just your physical, and now everything is expanding and you're picking up on all of these things in your energetic field that are not physical. Okay, so for example, I have very strong clairvoyance, right? Where I see things in my peripheral often. And this particular gift for me has been coming online a lot more. And it started like a few years ago. And it started where I've told this story before on the podcast, but it's been a while. I started, like I would be sitting on my couch facing our TV that was above the fireplace, and it was like in between built-ins, right? So there's like books and whatever. And I was sitting on the couch facing this TV, and over to my right, on the right of the TV, where there was a bunch of books, every single night, I would only see it at night, and I would only see it, and I was usually the only one in the living room, so I would only see it at night when I was sitting down, when I was relaxed, and when I was watching TV. And I was fully tuned into the TV, right? Like I'm not looking around at the books. I'm paying attention to what I'm watching. And I started to see movement to the right of the TV, kind of in front of that bookcase. And I would see it every night. And I'm going to be honest, at first it terrified me, because if you go from not seeing anything to all of a sudden seeing something, yeah, that's scary. I didn't know what I was seeing. Plus, it was usually at night when I was alone in the living room. It's like my family was home, but I was the only one in the living room, and it just kind of freaked me out. Sometimes I would pull a blanket over my head. I'd be like, what am I seeing? I don't know what that is. But over time, as it happened more and more and more, I recognized that one, okay, this happens often and I'm fine. It's not, it's not something I have to be afraid of. But it also got stronger and it kind of moved around a little bit. And when I try to explain, usually when I tell people about this, I'm like, this is what it looked like. Imagine you could see wind, but instead of having like a color or something, it's almost like something. Oh, wait, this is a better example. Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, where you can't really see the cloak, but if you look at it in the movies, it's like clear, but you can kind of just see a little bit of blur. That's what it looks like. So, I would see it in my peripheral where it would just like move, kind of like flow like wind in front of the bookcase, but I could just see the motion. And if I caught it in my peripheral, it was blurry, but clear. Anyway, over time, over weeks and months, I would just see it pretty much every single night. And some nights it would be really minimal or maybe not at all. And then other nights it would just be constant and all over the place. And it would kind of move around, like it would move more to the side of me, and a little bit closer to me. And then it would go back. And over time, I just kind of got used to it. I kind of tried to tap into it in my meditation. I was like, is this a family member? Like, what is this? And I go back and forth. Last time I told this story, I was like, I think it might be my grandfather. And then over time, I'm like, I'm not sure. I still don't know for sure what that spirit was. I should actually try to tune into that again. But that's when I first saw it, right? Well, then we moved out of that house and I hadn't really thought about it or seen that in a while. And now that I'm living with my parents, just in the last, I would say, month or two, I'm starting to pick up on these a little bit more. Now, mind you, this whole time, I also have I've always had strong claircognizance. Like back in 2020, claircognizance or like clear knowing is really what I would tap into the most, like just getting immediate information just like in my mind. I also dealt a lot with clairaudience. So I had some other, different ways of anticipating or interpreting information and messages already there as well. But this part has been the most, I would say it's almost like the most paranormal, if I had to kind of label it, the most freaky, because it's not just in your head where you're the only one, or I guess I'm still the only one seeing it, but it's like, it's not just in my head, it's outside of my body. And that's what makes it a little bit more spooky almost, except it's not spooky once you get used to it and once you become more sensitive to the energy. Okay. So I'm at my parents' house. Again, a few weeks ago, I start noticing the same thing. I'm laying on the bed. I'm just scrolling through my phone. My kids are in bed. It's like before I go to bed at night. And all of a sudden, I see the same type of energy, the same type of that like clear movement out in front of me. And this time, though, I'm so not afraid of it. Like this time, my mind goes, oh, cool. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, yes, I haven't seen this in a long time. I feel more tuned in now. I feel more like prepared to work with this energy. So immediately I'm like welcoming it because I also trust. Now, mind you, it's always good to kind of sense in your own physical, your own energetic body, like to feel it out. Be like, does this feel like a safe energy? To put a protective shield around you intuitively, right? All of that. So I intuitively did not sense any threat from this whatsoever. I was like, I feel totally comfortable with this. I'm not scared. I feel like this is a good energy. Maybe it's a guide. Maybe it's an ancestor. Who knows? But what I knew most confidently was I can see this. I'm not making this up. I'm not imagining this. I am seeing this with my two eyeballs right in front of me. So in that moment, I kind of gave permission to what I was seeing. I was like, okay, I'm open to this. I'd like to work with this. I'd like to, experience this a little bit more. So I kind of intentionally like gave it permission, right? The second that I did that in my mind, it came really close. And this is the first time I've ever seen what I was seeing that energy moving up close. Like I have only ever seen it far away. And even then, sometimes far away, you're like, am I seeing that? Like you could still kind of question it. When I tell you, I started seeing this energy literally between my face and the phone I was holding. I was like, it's in my lap. And that was really, I wasn't scared. It did not feel scary at all. And I fully trust that intuitively I would have sensed if it was something negative. Not to mention, it only came that close when I gave it permission, which to me speaks to the fact that this is a very like respectful presence, that it's not like going against my will or what I would deem comfortable, but it came right up to my lap and then also just kind of moved from like right in front of me over to my right side. And I kind of just experimented with it. Now, it's happened a few times now, and it's very, very like on command at this point. So I'm still kind of meditating on this. I feel like it might be a guide, but it's very much like, okay, I need a break. It backs off. Like, okay, I'm welcoming it in. It's right here in front of me. It's very, and saying this, if you're not familiar or you're just like, doubting or whatever, that's totally fine. A few years ago, like you could not have convinced me that a story like this was actually happening. But now that I'm seeing it with my literal eyeballs, it's wild. And now that it's really getting stronger, it just validates a lot of the other aspects of my spiritual journey, a lot of other aspects of these gifts. So, I mean, I could do a whole episode on that because there's more details to that. But I just want to mention that as something that has been happening just in the past few months to kind of validate this idea of things are coming online now that you have not had access to for your entire life. The frequency of the planet right now is literally historical. We have not seen change like this on the planet. Our ancestors haven't seen change like this on the planet. Like, this is an extremely just huge historical, astrological, energetic time. Like if you're on the planet right now, you have like won the lottery, because what we are getting to experience, like the kind of upgrade that we are getting to experience, is something that none of our ancestors have had a chance to experience. It's like a really big deal. And with that comes these types of changes. With that comes the opportunity to experience a huge upgrade in coming online, in experiencing our gifts, and experiencing new types of energies that many times people could go through their entire life and never have access to. Another thing to note, my daughter, my oldest daughter, has also really started having more visual experiences. Now, she has heard me talk about these experiences, but she has never come to me and said, hey, I saw something with my eyeballs. But she's very intuitive. She's very observant, and she kind of dabbles. I never press any of my kids to like be interested or involved in something they don't want to be, but she is my one who really kind of dabbles the most in like the spiritual realm and is really into astrology and tarot and all of these different things. Well, she came to me a few weeks ago and was like, Mom, I am seeing movement with my eyeballs. Like I'm seeing things. It's like I'm seeing it out of the side of my eye. I'm like, yes, you're seeing things in your peripheral vision. This is amazing. Because I didn't mention to her the things that I had been seeing really, really strongly, like this energy that I'm seeing around me. I didn't mention that to her. I've just kind of kept it to myself. I was just kind of experimenting with it. So when she came to me around this exact same time that I'm going through this and told me like, Mom, I'm seeing things. Again, that's just a confirmation to me that like, yes, everybody is experiencing this on some sort of level. Like as the energy rises, as your frequency rises, these gifts are coming online for everybody. And it might not be like seeing visual things for you. It might be, hearing things more strongly, feeling things more strongly. Like it could be a lot of things. But I just wanted to share that story just because it's so validating and it's really cool and it's really fun to be able to kind of experience this together with her. Because again, I hadn't been talking to her about this, right? Like she has not heard me. I've told her the story of seeing things months and months ago. Like, I mentioned it when we were still living in our old house and all. It's been a long time. I have not mentioned this type of experience to her in a long time. And she's very like private and kind of personal with the stuff that she tends to like think and experience. So the fact that she came to me with this tells me that it's something that has made a really big impact on her and that it's really something different than she's used to seeing. Okay, I'm talking too much. I need to move on. Another thing is your hearing can become more layered. And again, clairaudience or clear hearing, I don't think actual hearing with your ears is very common. You might hear things like high-pitched ringing. You could hear voices, although that's not as typical. What is typical is not literal voices, but energetic impressions that land like sentences in your mind. And there's a lot of overlap really between like claircognizance, clear knowing, and clairaudience. Like I tend to hear sentences in my mind that I have now been able to distinguish from like my own voice. And I use that a lot when I do psychic readings for people. Like a lot of times I'll just get phrases or exact sentences and things like that. That is typically more common than hearing like an audible voice. So some people would describe it as clear thoughts that aren't theirs. But again, it often takes practice to recognize that they aren't your thoughts. Words dropping into your awareness, hearing your name when no one called it. Your mind is learning to translate vibrational information into language. A good way to explain this, and I feel like I mentioned this on a recent episode, but back when I did my past life hypnosis regression session, whatever it's called, what was really interesting about that session that I didn't expect, because I wasn't sure, like, how am I going to receive this information? How's it going to sound when I'm in this meditative state, when I'm in this hypnosis with a practitioner and she's asking me questions from my higher self? Like, how am I going to get that knowledge? Am I going to feel like I'm making it up? This is what I noticed, was that every bit of information that I got, when you're thinking thoughts. It's like thought after thought after thought, and there's a train of thoughts that you think, right? What was so different about this experience is that I didn't have a train of thoughts. It was like she would ask a question and immediately I would have the information, but I wouldn't have the information in words. It was like I had understanding of the information, and then my brain had to figure out, okay, how do I explain this? Like when you already know something and somebody asks you a question, you go, oh, I already know this. How do I word it so that it makes sense to you? That's what it was like. I was not thinking and then giving answers. I was understanding, and then I had to find words. Like I had to say, this is what it feels like. This is what it looks like, with my own words. Does that make sense? So that would be like words or understanding just dropping into your awareness. And then again, your mind is learning to translate that energetically. So when these gifts are coming online, you'll notice a few things. One, again, when you just get like an understanding that's not necessarily words, that'll happen. Or what I've noticed is if you're asking a question to your higher self, to your guides, to spirit, whatever, when you're asking a question, those answers come in so fast. Like a lot of times I will get an answer to a question before I'm even done asking the question. It's just immediate. It's so fast. Whereas if it was coming from my own thoughts, it would be much more like logically laid out in order, a train of thought, etc. Okay, also seeing repeated numbers. Again, you probably see angel numbers and things like that all the time, but you will notice that they ramp up significantly. Like you're seeing numbers all day, every day. You're 123, 1234, 111, 777, 888, whatever it is. Okay, but also there's lots of other types of synchronicities. Maybe a song that means something to you, or maybe a song that speaks to exactly what you're going through, whether it's on the radio or it just pops into your head. Maybe it's a bird or a bug that has significance to you, or another animal. Maybe it is, a rainbow. Maybe it is just a pattern that you just see randomly over and over and over again. Like you keep seeing, the same type of image or the same object over and over and over. And you're like, why have I seen this like 4 times today? This doesn't make any sense. Signs and synchronicities are very much like how you interpret them. So a lot of people might see something and think, well, is that a sign? It is if you feel like it's a sign. Just you saying, is that a sign, means it probably is, because anytime signs are sent to you or synchronicities are aligned with you, they're very much tuned to your energy and your understanding. So if you are seeing something, it's because your energy is aligned to that. So again, seeing repeating numbers, running into the right people at the right time, perfect timing lining up over and over. Like something happens and you're like, oh my gosh, that was the perfect timing. If it had happened any later or any earlier, it wouldn't have worked out. Or man, this opportunity opened right at the right time. That worked out perfectly. That kind of thing is a synchronicity. That is a sign that you are aligning with your path, or you're just rising oh my gosh. Basically, your internal frequency is syncing with external reality. And the universe has an easier time reaching you. All right, we talked about the dense energy versus the less dense or open energy. The universe has an easier time reaching you with guidance, reaching you with confirmation and nudges and things like that. You'll also notice that you may start feeling pulled towards things without knowing why. You're like, I don't know, I just really feel like I need to read this book. I really feel like, I need to listen to this podcast episode. Or, all of a sudden I really want to have this conversation with this person. It feels like something is guiding you to exactly what you need. That is your intuition, right? You've probably felt your intuition guiding you towards other things. That's going to get stronger. You need to listen to it. You need to pay attention to it. If you feel guided to do something or listen to something or, whatever, listen to that. Take action. It's guiding you towards exactly what you need in that moment. That is intuitive magnetism. When your gifts come online, your energy becomes more responsive to what is aligned for you. Also, you're going to get way more sensitive. I'm sorry in advance, this part is not always fun, but your empathy or your emotional sensitivity is going to heighten. Suddenly, you can feel the mood of a room even easier than you could before if you're already somebody that was really tuned into that. You can understand, that someone is holding something back. You can read people easier. You can pick up on tension easier. You're not becoming like more dramatic, more sensitive in a dramatic way. Your clairsentience is coming online. You're feeling easier. Your system is reading energetic cues before they become obvious. And not just your emotional sensitivity, but your physical sensitivity. Like lights may feel brighter, or noises will feel louder, or crowds will feel more draining, or caffeine will hit harder than usual. That's been happening to me. Your nervous system, again, is recalibrating to hold and process all of this higher frequency information, which while you're getting used to that, while your nervous system is stabilizing, that can make it feel like your everyday stimuli just feels like too much. All of a sudden you're like, none of this bothered me before. Why does it bother me so much right now? Like, why am I tired and irritable and sensitive and everything is too much? Part of that is your nervous system adjusting to a much higher frequency. There's going to be an adjustment period. It will stabilize. It's not going to be like that forever, but you have to get through that learning curve. And I really should have mentioned this when I was talking about feeling guided towards things, but you might feel an internal pressure to not just be guided towards something you need to do, but maybe something that needs to change, or pressure to grow, or pressure to let go of things that used to feel fine. So this is another thing we're all collectively really going through right now, is all of a sudden you feel like, I refuse to do this anymore. I am not going to allow this boundary to be crossed anymore. I'm not going to continue to allow myself to keep, overstepping my own comfort or whatever it is. It's just like something, maybe a relationship you need to let go of. I'm not going to, entertain this friendship anymore. I'm not going to entertain this romantic relationship anymore. I'm not going to allow my parents to talk to me this way anymore. Jobs, friendships, habits, patterns. Your spirit is going to start rejecting what is no longer in alignment. You're not just being picky. You're not just like more sensitive. Emotionally, your energetic frequency is upgrading, and anything below that frequency automatically becomes harder to tolerate. Okay, so that is basically, I'm like, I gotta stop naming things or we're gonna be here all day. But those are basically just a lot of different ways, a lot of different things that you might notice that communicate to you that your gifts are coming online, that things are getting more and more tuned in. You're getting more and more intuitive. You're getting more and more connected. You have access to more and more non-physical energy that you did not previously have as much access to. And like I said, this is very overwhelming. It's a big adjustment. We don't feel great. We're confused. We're overwhelmed. We're trying to work through all of the chaos and the muck. And we're trying to understand what our gifts actually look like and feel like and how we can, handle them better. Just understand that if you're feeling overwhelmed and kind of crazy right now and drained, but you also really want to tune into your gifts, if you're feeling all of that kind of at the same time, that is very normal, okay? We are, like I've said in multiple other episodes, this is like, I feel like all of these episodes are just kind of layering on top of each other because we're just talking about different aspects of this huge shift that's happening on the planet. That's why I feel like I keep having these episodes that come back to this, is because it affects every single part of your life. And so it's like we could talk about anything right now and it would all somehow go back to this shift that we are experiencing. So if you're feeling that way, we're all feeling that way. In 2026 and 2027, there's a good chance that you're going to feel a lot more settled in this energy. Your nervous system is not going to feel so overloaded. You're going to feel a lot more tuned into your gifts. You're going to be able to utilize them more and feel really confident and feel really clear in what you're doing and how you're using them. But right now, it's the learning curve. Right now, we're not swimming yet. We're learning how to swim. And while we're learning how to swim, we feel like we're drowning, right? It's really scary and overwhelming, and it just feels really hard. We're not swimming yet. We're going to get there in a couple years from now. Everything's going to feel totally different. But right now, we all need a lot of encouragement and support, and we need to know we're not crazy because this energy is really chaotic and confusing, and everything's upgrading and other things are falling apart, and it's just like everything is happening at once. And that's kind of why I want these episodes to be just like clarifying for you. I want you to be able to hear this and be like, okay, it's not just me. We're all going through this. What I'm feeling is normal, and there's answers for it. It's not just for no reason. There's actually answers, and there's things that are happening behind the scenes that help you feel better about what you're going through. That being said, there's also things that you can do. There's ways that you can support yourself on a regular basis to make all of these adjustments feel less overwhelming, feel less of a struggle, so to speak. Okay. So, and there are a lot of the same things, the same way that we move through all sorts of healing and all sorts of shadow work, things like meditation, things like just sleep, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you're eating well. Anything that supports your overall energy in a positive way is going to affect all of these things in a positive way, right? So giving your body access to healthy fuel and sleep and all of that, meditating, grounding, putting your feet on bare earth. And I know this is harder if you have harsher winters right now. I'm in South Carolina, so I can put my feet on the ground any time of year. But if you can, putting your bare feet on the ground or just getting sunshine in your eyeballs every single day, getting fresh air, making sure that you're giving yourself time to just like rest and recuperate each day. And I don't mean like lying down. I don't mean like binging a Netflix show. I mean literally just like stopping for a minute. You don't have to be in full meditation, but just stopping and breathing and just taking a moment to kind of like recalibrate. That allows your energy to reset. Breath work is a huge part of that. So a lot of times I'll do deep breathing. I don't always dive into like what I would consider breath work where you're doing certain exercises in terms of breaths. But whether it's full-blown breath work or whether you're taking just deep breaths in general, slowing down and focusing on your breath is a really, really, really good way to kind of recalibrate your whole system. That's why you feel calmer. If you're worked up and you start taking some deep breaths, that's why you feel calmer all of a sudden, okay? You're regulating your energy. Don't underestimate the power of breath work. Also, things like journaling or recording. Maybe you're just recording your voice and how you feel about something. If you don't like writing, you can always just like say it out loud. You can take notes on your phone or whatever about what you're feeling and going through or just different things that you're learning. That's always helpful if you want to look back on where you were 2 months ago and what you were experiencing then. You can look back on that and see how you're growing, see how your gifts are coming online. Like, oh, today I, saw something with my eyes. I heard something in my mind. Whereas 2 months ago, it wasn't so strong or it wasn't online as much. It's a great way to kind of see how you're progressing. But the main thing and kind of like the summarized thing that I want us to take away here is that you're not making it up. It is difficult right now. It's difficult, but it's also really encouraging and just kind of cool and exciting if you notice any of these things coming more online. The key here is 1, recognize it. You're looking for it. You're recognizing it. You're not brushing it off. And 2, just practicing it, recognizing that it takes practice to continue to clarify and have understanding around these gifts coming online. Also, this is a great opportunity to remind you that I have an entire course that talks exactly about how to tune more into your spiritual gifts, which walks through all of this stuff anyways, without even being in a crazy collective state where things are rising really quickly. But it walks you through like what to look out for, exactly what to do for each gift, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentient, each and every gift functions a little bit differently. And so I walk through all of them and how to, interpret and how to go about them all differently. I also talk about how to unblock things that are in your body that could block your gifts, because like no matter what your frequency is, if you have unhealed stuff that you refuse to deal with, you're going to block your gifts. Shadow work is a huge part of your gifts coming online. You kind of have to deal with that stuff to have better access to your gifts, because that lower frequency energy sits in your body and it acts like a blockade. It acts like a barrier to your gifts being able to come online. So I walk through all of that, how to heal that, how to set a healthy energetic foundation, and just step by step how you can go from like just kind of being a spiritual person or having an interest in this to being a full-blown like access to your psychic gifts, or, you know, clear access to your guides or your higher self or whatever it is that you want to communicate with, getting to a point where you no longer doubt that. It's just part of your everyday life. So that course is called Sensitive to Psychic. It is linked in the show notes. Also, if you're a member of the second tier of the Patreon for $22 a month, you also get a significant discount on the course. So keep that in mind. Anyway, everyone's activation of their gifts and what that looks like is going to be unique to them, but all of the signs that we experience are pointing to the growth, are pointing to the evolution, are pointing to the deeper alignment. And so be encouraged that you are not walking through this alone, that the things that you are experiencing might look specifically unique to you, and you might experience them differently than other people, but this is a collective thing that we are walking through. Okay, I need to wrap this episode up. It's getting really long. Just a reminder to leave a review. If you have listened to at least 2 of my episodes and enjoyed them, please leave a review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. I would appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Don't forget to check out the Patreon if you want an extra episode every single week. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.